So when you have a country of countries, what country are you actually supposed to cook? And welcome back to Cliffieland. This is Week in Country number 184 on our second attempt at cooking food of every single country in the world. Tonight we're up to the nation of the United Kingdom. The problem here is that the United Kingdom is a very complicated thing. Generally speaking, it is a country of countries, which means it includes the nations of, or the countries of England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales, but it also has a whole bunch of other territories, and then there's the Commonwealth, and that gets really complicated really fast. And in terms of the food, that makes things and this whole procedure a whole lot more difficult. Let's see how things went when we did this whole thing last time around. Well, last time around on the Global Cooking Challenge, I got to cook and stream the United Kingdom across 4 separate nights, which meant I had a night for England, a night for Northern Ireland, a night for Scotland, a night for Wales, which was all hunky-dory, except I don't have that kind of time here anymore. Now, you're probably familiar with a certain amount of British food. I mean, you have things like your bangers and mash and fish and chips, which the country is famous for, and interestingly enough, over the past several, let's say, decades, the national dish of the United Kingdom has become, or one of the dishes has become, chicken tikka, which is a dish which has Indian origins, but it's not actually Indian because it was actually created by an Indian chef for a British palate, shall we say. Now, I didn't really think that that was the most appropriate thing to be cooking when I cooked the food in the United Kingdom last time, and last time around I did manage to cook a dish that incorporated that in when I cooked the food of South Africa, and that was something I did only for the blog then. It's called a Durban bunny, and it's really good, and check it out because it involves, like, you know, a whole loaf of bread that you hollow out, and it's really kind of wild. But we're not doing that. Now, for Scotland, I made a delicious salmon balmoral, which was wonderful. For Northern Ireland, I did something odd. It had kind of an Indian origins also. It's complicated. I don't know. That came out fine. For Wales, I made a Welsh rarebit, which I didn't realize is something of a dip. But what we're doing here tonight is what we did for England, which is a roast beef with Yorkshire pudding and roasted vegetables. That came out really great. I have a lot of British friends, and I really want to impress them. I apologize I can't, get to all the other countries in this country of countries, as it were. Nonetheless, all those dishes came out rather nicely, but they all kind of paled in comparison to that really delicious roast beef. Now we need to see what goes into tonight's dish. First, for our roast beef with Yorkshire pudding, we'll need 1 3 to 4 pound beef top sirloin roast, preferably tied, kosher salt and freshly ground black pepper to taste, a 1/4 cup of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of finely chopped fresh thyme, 2 tablespoons of finely chopped fresh rosemary, 4 cloves of garlic finely chopped, and 1 1/4 cups of milk, 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of flour, 3 large eggs, 1 large shallot finely chopped, 1/2 cup of red wine, and 1 cup of beef stock. And then for our roast root vegetables with herbs, you'll need about 1 kilo or 2 1/4 pounds of root vegetables. Pick your own. You can use potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, parsnips, swede, also known as rutabaga here, and kohlrabi. In our case, we're using sweet potato, rutabaga, turnips, and carrots. 8 ounces of shallots or pickling onions, 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 1 teaspoon of coarse sea salt, 1 teaspoon of cracked black peppercorns, and a few sprigs of fresh thyme and a few sprigs of fresh rosemary to garnish, optional. Well, that is going to be a metric ton of food, and that is a good reason why I wound up having company over, because this is just way too much for 2 or 3 or 4 people to eat. Nonetheless, gave it a shot. So now we need to get cooking. Season beef with salt and pepper. Then, in a small bowl, mix together the oil, thyme, rosemary, and garlic. Rub the beef with the herb mixture, place the beef in a small roasting pan, cover loosely with plastic wrap, and refrigerate for at least 8 hours or overnight. The next day, remove the beef from the refrigerator 2 hours before you're ready to roast to allow it to come up to room temperature. Meanwhile, make the Yorkshire pudding batter. Whisk together milk, flour, salt, and eggs in a bowl. Cover and let the batter sit at room temperature for at least 1 hour. Heat your oven to 500 degrees Fahrenheit, remove the plastic wrap, and roast the beef until browned, about 18 to 20 minutes. Reduce the temperature to 250 degrees. Roast until thermometer inserted into the center of the beef reads 120 degrees for medium rare, or about 25 minutes. Remove from the oven, transfer to a cutting board, and let rest, tented with foil, while you make the Yorkshire pudding and gravy. Pour the pan drippings into a bowl, leaving about 3 tablespoons in the pan, and set the roasting pan aside. Raise the oven temperature to 450 degrees. Spoon about half a teaspoon of the reserved drippings from the bowl into each of a non-stick muffin pan. Heat in the oven for 15 minutes. Uncover the batter, whisk in 1 tablespoon of drippings from the bowl, remove the pan from the oven, pour the batter evenly between the cups, and bake until risen and brown, about 20 minutes. Reduce the oven temperature to 350 degrees, bake for 10 minutes to set the puddings, remove the pan from the oven and set aside. Then make the gravy. Heat the reserved roasting pan over medium heat, add the shallots, and cook until soft, about 4 to 6 minutes. Add the wine, cook, scraping up the brown bits until reduced by half, about 4 to 6 minutes. Whisk in the remaining flour, followed by the stock. Cook, whisking until thick, about 5 minutes. Slice the beef and serve with the pudding and gravy. Garnish with chopped parsley if you like. Preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Scrub and peel the vegetables according to the type and your taste. Halve or quarter the large potatoes if you're using them. Cut large carrots or parsnips in half lengthwise, then cut the pieces across in half again. Cut the rutabaga or kohlrabi into large chunks if you're using those, about the same size as the potatoes, and leave the shallots or onions whole. Place the vegetables in a saucepan and pour in enough boiling water to cover them. Bring back to the boil, and then reduce the heat and simmer for 5 to 7 minutes or until the vegetables are lightly cooked but not yet tender. Drain the vegetables and place them in a roasting tin. Brush with the oil and sprinkle with the salt and peppercorns. Add the herb sprigs to the tin and place in the oven. Roast for 30 to 35 minutes or until the vegetables are golden brown, crisp, and tender. Turn the vegetables over halfway through the cooking. Serve hot, garnish with sprigs of thyme or rosemary if liked. Well, how did that turn out? Well, it was delicious. That roast beef was wonderful. It worked really great for leftovers also. The spices and the flavors all in it really cooked in nicely. It was cooked perfectly all the way through. And those roasted vegetables were sumptuous. They were so delicate. And the Yorkshire pudding. Let me tell you, okay, as an American, we don't know what pudding is if it's not a dessert. And the idea that a pudding is a savory thing, much less something that's like almost bread-like, which is different than it worked last time around. It was confusing. But let's start off with the roast beef. That was fantastic. Gonna give that one 5 out of 5 globes. Just super delicious. As were the roasted vegetables. Another 5 out of 5 globes there. Really simple, really basic, and normally would be cooked alongside with the meat, except I had 2 separate recipes, so, you know, I did it separately. And that Yorkshire pudding. That was so different than it was last time. I liked it. Pleasant surprise. Gonna give that one 4 out of 5 globes. Liked it so very much, so thank you for hanging out here with us for the United Kingdom. We have one more coming on next, which is next week when we travel all the way to here to have the food of the United States of America. See you then. These are not my original recipes. Links to the original recipes and their authors can be found in the About section. If you have any thoughtful feelings or helpful suggestions about what I'm doing, feel free to sound off in the comments here. If you like what you see, like, subscribe, hit that bell to be notified when these videos are posted, and of course you can always follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Thanks for coming by. See you next time. Happy eating.